This is Kim Drucker Stockwell of Women's Survival Guide with Melissa Fetter from Beacon Hill Bookstore, a bookstore that's been open for 2 years. That was her vision. It's a 5-story townhouse on Beacon Hill that took 3 years to build.
That's right, 3 years.
And I'll let her tell you the story.
Including the pandemic. So I bought the building in 2019 and then went barreling into 2020 with a full set of plans to gut the building and turn it into a bookstore and cafe. And then of course the pandemic came along. So in the end, it took 3 years to renovate. We went down to the brick walls on both sides, and every piece of molding, fireplaces, bookshelves, everything is new, but with great intention to make it look as though it's original, because the building has great history. It was built in the late 1800s, and in fact it was the home and workshop of a famous globe maker, Gilman Jocelyn.
Oh, that's so cool.
Who made globes and lived here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did he make them out of wood, or were they out of sort of paper mache?
Probably out of paper mache. They're still in circulation. I wish I do have one, but I keep it at home because it's a a valuable antique. But it's a really wonderful history, I think, because I think there's a parallel between someone making globes that will be used to help to understand the world, and books in a bookstore, which also help us understand our world.
I think that's absolutely true. And one of the things about this bookstore, which you'll see from the videos and the photos, is that it's really an interior design opus. And as someone who loves interior design, as does my mom and my stepmom and my grandmothers and everything, I spend money and time on what my house looks like. I don't.
Yes.
And this is a bespoke, unique experience. Every little bit of it was tailored to fit the vision of Melissa and the people that helped her create this place. And one of the things I think about is bringing decorating back, bringing in proper interior design back. It's like bringing civility back.
Well, and it's very timely, because I think after COVID, we as a society really craved the opportunity to gather in person, and I think creating a space that people really want to be in, which is the case with our bookstore, that's a real combination. That's a winning combination, and it's enabled us to be so successful as a bookstore and kind of far outdistance what the expectations were for a bookstore in this location with this square footage. It's because we're creating a real experience.
It is.
Give people a reason to not just do what's convenient, and that is to order something online, but to come in and take it in, the smells, the flowers, the lighting, and to experience the cafe, which really, I shouldn't call it a cafe, it's a restaurant.
It's a restaurant.
Open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
And with fresh popovers, and today they're doing a fancy tea for Christmas and with scones. And before we dive into the origins of the idea and how Melissa, who's not from Boston, came and basically blood, sweat, and tears and a fair bit of cash, I would think, got this place to where it is today. But one of the things that's really interesting about this bookstore is that it's so gorgeous that it's also a venue. So people use it, and it's not an inexpensive venue. When you see the tour, you'll see why. But it's the best place for an engagement party or a baby shower or a special birthday.
Birthdays, exactly. So Kim,
and your marketing too.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Well, so let's first take the events.
Yeah.
So if anyone even begins to look at starting a bookstore, they'll quickly determine that there's absolutely no margin in the book business. All books are sold at the recommended suggested retail price, and so that is what we do here. Amazon can afford to undercut the price, but we stay right, at what is recommended. And that means you've got to find other ways to make a profit so that you can run the business and pay people well and keep the lights on. So it came to me early on that doing special events here could be a sideline business, and it has.
Really is.
After 2 years, we are very, very busy with high-end events, whether it's a closing dinner for a deal that a law firm downtown is hosting,
that's smart.
or it's a wedding dinner or a special birthday.
Mhm.
We are meeting a lot of needs, and it's not for large groups. Seated dinner is a maximum of 22, but it's very, very special.
Yeah.
And there's something wonderful about being surrounded by all these books when you're having a dinner party.
And the decor, like, don't let this is obviously beautiful, but there's a whole world out there with fireplaces and beautiful, unbelievable light fixtures and the color scheme. But the other thing that that Melissa figured out is, and it seems like, oh, you're selling, like other things that go with books, like be it stationery or
Yes.
notepads, but you created this little character, Paige, the book squirrel.
The squirrel, yes. I
And
don't want to forget about Paige.
There's
Yeah.
there's a children's section with a train and tiny little door that they can go through. It's pretty
Which
amazing.
we need to go upstairs.
We will.
So
We will
that
go-
You can,
we
you
will
can
tour
pick up
that.
that detail.
But the thing is, their bags, the marketing or the branding is really second to none.
Well, I appreciate your enthusiasm,
it's
and
amazing.
you can see that with everything we sell, it has to be very much on brand. And a lot of the things we have developed on our own. In fact, you need to see our wonderful new umbrella,
I
which
caught
is a
that with
very,
the interior.
very chic color of
Oh.
brown, and it has our
I'll be
logo
getting one
on the
of
front.
those.
But what's neat about it is the lining of it is in a sister parish pattern. So, as you know, all of the wallpapers and fabrics in the store are from an American design firm, a women-owned, family-owned design firm called Sister Parish Design. And so they've been very wonderful to let us use some of their iconic prints to create things like the umbrella, which
Yeah.
is one of my favorite new products. But yes, we put a lot of time into thinking, okay, we don't want to sell junk. We want to sell things that feel they're consistent with our brand. And people are coming here for a specific experience, and they want to see that throughout everything, whether they're dining in the cafe or they're purchasing a memento of their visit.
Yeah, I mean there's specific candles, and the design of the candle, the scent of the candle, and then the font and the color of the font, and it's
Yes.
so perfect. It hurts. Like for those of us that are like into this
I'm going
thing,
to put you in charge of our
I
marketing.
know it's just like you're just like the art, the little nooks of where to sit,
Yeah, yeah.
everything. It's just. It's for me. It's really a mecca, and it's not just for women. It's not as though like, but I will say, it's definitely leans into
Yes,
to women's
but-
wants and needs.
But you know what's interesting? Before I opened, I was in a conversation with a very smart businessman, and he said to me, "You know what? Just build it for the women, and they will bring the men."
That's
and,
true.
And I said, "That's interesting you say that, because I am kind of building it for the women." But you know, women are the predominant readers of books
And
in the
buyers
publishing
of stuff.
industry, and yeah, so that made sense to me. But yes, we have all genders coming in
Yeah.
here, and but it is an experience. That's what I want to emphasize.
is.
When people say to me, how is it you have 86,000 followers on Instagram? How is it you have lines of people waiting to come in?
It's true.
Even 2 years after we opened, just this past weekend is an example where we had to create a line because the droves of people wanting to come into the store, we just couldn't accommodate in this little townhouse, as I said, built
It's
in the
quite
late
it's
1800s.
tight, but it's
Yeah.
it's not that tight if it's just some people. But when you see the people
When you have
in
hundreds
line,
of people, right?
and
so,
and that needs to be managed. And one of the
Yeah.
things that from the top down, from Melissa down, this is a big organization. I mean, how many people do you have
so
working
at our
here?
peak, we have 60 people.
That's a
yeah,
lot
and
of
that
people.
that includes the cafe. But yes, it's a
You know?
it's a lot of people to
Yeah.
to manage and keep happy. And I feel one of our hallmarks is that we are a very friendly, helpful staff.
Yeah.
How
that's
many
true.
times do we all walk into a store and the person behind the cash register can't even bother to look up and
look
say
up,
hello?
yeah.
And so
They always
that's
do.
something I always say to my team. It's very easy to stand out in that arena because the
It's a low
the
bar.
standard, exactly. The comparisons are so low.
I want to flip back to the beginning because I think we actually just met somebody on the sidewalk who, did she own a bookstore? She owned a
I think she
bookstore in
said she
California?
worked at a bookstore.
She
Yeah.
might have owned it. She might have worked anyway. But it is a thing that people are fascinated by, and I mean, bookstores are just incredibly romantic, and frankly, one of the few places you can actually meet someone now, because you can't go for videos. Like, where do you go to meet people now?
Right. Well, we have that, but we also have a lot of people making proposals in here,
Oh,
which I think is so charming. Yeah.
it's photo ready. That is
It
for
is
sure.
photo ready.
But so there was a beginning, and
Yes.
tell
Okay,
us about
so
that.
so the beginning was moving to a new city that was known to my husband and me, because he was here in graduate school in the late '80s. But it had been a long time, so we moved to Boston.
Where'd you move from?
We were living in Dallas, Texas, for 13 years, and prior to that, California for 20 years. So
Oh, wow.
I've been all over the place,
Wow.
which I think may contribute to the end product here,
Mhm.
because I've been exposed to kind of the virtues of each of those cities, and they all offer something in terms of my viewpoint on what this store should be like. But in any case, so we moved here in 2019, and my husband's starting a new career teaching at Harvard Business School. He'd been a executive, a CEO of a public company for 15 years. So he was starting a new chapter. And I got here, and once I got the house decorated, we live a few blocks from here on the hill, I thought, okay, now what am I going to do? Because with previous moves, I had children that I was managing.
Oh, right.
And in
Empty
this
nest.
case, exactly, I was very much on my own. I thought, okay, what am I going to do? And I very much wanted to go back into the work world.
Mm-hmm.
My early career was working for J.P. Morgan. I knew that I didn't want to go back and do that. And I heard a lot of murmurings in the community on Beacon Hill that we didn't have a bookstore, and that there used to be 3.
There were 3.
and
I
then
remember
there were
them.
none. Right.
Yeah.
So I got to thinking, and I thought, you know what? I think I could start a bookstore. Now, with a lot of people that own bookstores, it is a lifelong dream, and I need to be very clear, that is not the case for me.
Okay.
For me, it was more a business opportunity, seeing an absence of
That's so
something
neat.
and wanting to fill that need.
Mhm.
And as we all know, that's sort of a basic rule. If you want to start a business, what is it that's missing? What is it that you would like to have in your life? Fill that need. So anyhow, so that's what I did. And interestingly, I had the whole concept fully baked in my mind, that
Mhm.
I needed to buy one of these townhouses on Charles Street that are 5 stories, and that it needed to feel very residential, that you would wander up the stairs,
Yeah.
and there'd be little nooks and crannies for
Oh.
different types of books, and that there would be a restaurant. So I think fortunate that a building did come along, because these buildings don't come on the market very often.
Yeah.
And I
And it was
purchased it.
pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID, exactly. Very important thing to note. Pre-COVID. So then 2020, beginning of 2020, I'm all set. I've got a complete set of architectural plans, and it was a real gut renovation
I
of the
know.
building.
Yeah.
We went down to the studs.
Yep.
And and then shortly after the beginning of 2020, we're into March, and suddenly there's no building department to talk to. There's no Beacon Hill Architectural Commission. And so that year of 2020 was just a lot of kind of fits and starts and doing what was called emergency repair. So suddenly everything was an emergency repair, because I couldn't bear the thought of having this asset sitting here. It was bad enough that I couldn't open a business, but to not make progress on the renovation was just, painful.
Did you do did you gut it during that time, or was
We
that
did.
already started?
We did. We began to take it apart, because we did have some truly dangerous issues, like a chimney that was about to fall
Oh.
into the street.
Yeah.
We had
that's
bricks on the
surprising.
facade that were popping out. We had windows that were about to fall out. So the building had been neglected, and so this was
It had.
kind of
I remember.
starting from square one. Anyhow, so renovated the building, and then finished in the late summer of 2022.
Wow.
And then jumped through all sorts of hoops to get certified to open the cafe. If anyone's ever opened a restaurant, you know that dealing with the health department and umpteen different...
And beer and wine, right?
Well, yes, but that was the easy part.
Oh.
That was buying a beer and wine license
Oh,
during COVID, when nobody wanted them.
Okay.
That's the one thing in this whole business that I actually timed well.
Oh.
Anyhow, so then we opened in 2022, and I love to think back about the fact that we started with a team of 5.
Mhm.
And I remember vividly, as we were lining the shelves with all of our new books and tweaking everything, that we looked at each other and said, okay, so when we open, what if no one comes in? And we love to think back on that. It was a genuine concern, like, oh my gosh, what if no one comes?
What were their positions?
So book buyer, book manager,
Mhm.
operations, bookkeeper,
Right.
and myself.
Bookkeeper.
That
I
was
love
it. Yeah, what,
3 books
right,
and
right.
like that.
A different kind of book.
Yeah, exactly.
Financial books.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a small little team, and I remember early on, I mean, if we opened in October, you can imagine before we knew it, we were rushing into the holiday season.
Right.
But
right.
a woman came in that was a friend of a friend. She had just moved to Boston, and she said, well, I would love to volunteer here. And I said, no. We don't take volunteers. We'll pay you, and you can spend your vast earnings as a bookseller on more books.
Yeah.
Anyhow, she was the former assistant district attorney in Manhattan.
Wow.
So that's the quality of people that we have working here, which I just love.
Who was the British guy?
Oh, he's still here.
He's
our
still
bookstore
here.
manager.
That's what I thought.
Horatio.
I
He's
thought-
out of Central Casting.
He is. He's literally like a British guy
He's darling.
who does fancy books.
Exactly. He's
It's really
wonderful.
funny.
But we have a great team. And,
Yeah, you do.
And one thing that anyone will tell you in the book business is that it's very easy to get highly competent, high quality, great people to work for you, because bookstores are a place of choice. People want to work in
Yeah.
bookstores. It's a happy place.
And Colleen,
Yes.
so there's a chef who has opened restaurants, and that's who runs the cafe.
Yes, and she came to me. There was an article in the local newspaper, Beacon Hill Times, about the fact that I was going to be opening this bookstore. Somehow she got a hold of that
That's so
article,
great.
and she reached out to me and said, have you hired a chef? And I said, no, I'm just waiting for you to come along. So she was in early on, and she has been an incredible trooper, because she's working in a kitchen,
It's
Kim, that is the size of a closet.
It is.
And over the course of the 2 years we've been open, we've gone from just being open for breakfast and lunch to being open for breakfast, lunch, and supper, and
Wow.
afternoon tea. The store is now open 7 days a week. Originally, we were
Oh.
only open 6 days a week.
That's
Our
yeah.
hours are now from 8 a.m. till 9 p.m.
Oh my
When we
God.
first opened, it was like 9 to 4. Anyhow, the demand is there, and
Yeah.
so we want to meet the need, but I have to underline how incredibly collaborative and generous of spirit Chef Colleen has been. And by the way, it's all women running this business. Women own and
Except for the
women
British
running
guy.
it. Yeah. But he's a good sport about it.
Yeah.
Because he's got all these women running around making it happen.
Well, I think what's fascinating, listening to you talk about that, it's true. People have this lifelong idea of when they're like another friend of mine who created an incredible clothing store, and it's something that she had thought about. I didn't know that, but she knew that. Now, in your case, you should be running the Harvard Business School
Yeah, I know.
entrepreneurial
No,
area.
I often think that they need to do a case on us at the very least.
Yeah.
So okay. So there are a couple of high-level lessons I've taken from all of this. Number one, it's really important to go with your gut instinct on things. And we could have done analysis all day long. In fact, we did. We had, my husband's a real numbers person, and he put together projections based on input from experts in the field. And we have overshot those numbers by a factor of 7.
Wow.
So, you can theorize all day long
Yeah.
about what your business is going to be.
It's not a hobby.
But my instinct told me that if I could create the right experience, people would come and it would become a thing. And in fact, I remember before we opened saying to my husband one evening, as the store was coming together, and I said to him, I think I'm really creating something that could be very big. My instinct told me that would happen. And so again, stick with your instinct. The other lesson is one should never assume that as they are getting later in their years, 50s and 60s, which by the way is getting younger by the moment.
Exactly.
That you've kind of missed your opportunity. In my case, I had no background in retailing or book selling or opening a restaurant, and I just forged ahead. And I sometimes think that was to my advantage, because when you don't know what you don't know, you can be more forceful, and it's your lack of worry about what might not happen that causes one to just keep moving forward. And so I think it's really important that people not assume, particularly as we're all living so much longer and we're in such healthy shape, to start something, in my case at 60, it was an easy thing to do. And of course, many generations ago,
Right.
It might have been
You'd be-
moving me into the nursing home.
Exactly, but it is fascinating, and I think that the key that you're saying, this is the kind of thing you can do, you know, if you, and I think the one thing you're not mentioning though is it took a lot of work, and the
Yes.
one thing in common with the people that I interview is it takes a lot of work.
Yes.
Like, you know, Eva the fish farm advocate, you know, Kaki the store, all you guys
Yes.
work your butts off.
Yes. Yes.
The just
yes.
I don't think people always fully understand, you know, how much work the internet marketing aspect takes and how necessary it is. Some people enjoy it more than others,
Right.
but
right.
it's you can't ignore it, and I should take my own advice.
Yeah.
But
But you know, in our case, I mean, you're saying a couple of things here, but let's take a moment the internet and the online marketing of the
Mhm.
business. So I was a casual user of Instagram before I opened the store. And then I created the Instagram for the store before we opened, which, by the way, anyone starting a new business, I highly recommend. You start building the story well in advance of when you open. Seems obvious, but it was really key for us because we built up this pent-up excitement so that
I'll
when
have to
we
look
did open,
back.
there were, you know, lines out the door.
There were.
And secondly, we already had you know, not an enormous number of followers, but a substantial number. And when customers came in and started uploading videos of the store onto
Mhm.
TikTok,
That's,
there was one video in particular that had 1 million views and it went viral, and then, you know, the rest is history. And I do
it's
think,
amazing.
I always say I know enough to be dangerous about social media. I think that wave is still rolling. And
Yeah.
it is still bringing people in. Let me give you an example. I was doing the decorations for the holidays in the last couple of weeks, and I was in the cafe. We were open, and I was putting holiday lights on something, and I could hear customers speaking German, Spanish, and French. You know, different tables.
Mhm.
And then I got into a conversation with one couple, and they were visiting from Bermuda. So, you know,
Wow.
yes, of course, those could be locals, but they appeared to be people who had traveled into
Yeah,
the area.
this is a
So
real
we've
destination.
become- exactly.
Real destination.
Exactly. As
Yeah.
long as people keep coming to Boston,
Mhm.
they'll keep coming to Beacon Hill Books.
I think that's true, and as well they should. It's fantastic, and the food's really good, and the books are amazing.
But I wanted to go back to your point about
Mm.
working hard.
Mm,
When you're really excited about what you're doing,
that's a good
it
point.
doesn't feel like work.
Right.
I mean, I was so energized, and yes, of course, when we first opened our doors, it was physically demanding because we
Mhm.
didn't have enough staff. We were figuring it out. It just was this, you know, again, a tsunami of people coming in the door. But when you're really excited about your idea,
Yeah.
so it's like be excited and listen to your instinct, and then the working hard part comes naturally.
Yeah. I think that's true. You're right.
And you know what? Women work hard.
They do work hard. They're aware that it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
I think everything in our lives is like that, especially since we do tend to live a little longer.
Yeah.
So it's good to stay. You know, it's good to get the brain working, whether it's just anything, but it could be just completely new and foreign. And
Yes.
this is
But
why
again,
I had to
that
interview
was our
Melissa.
secret. That was
Yeah.
our secret element. I think is that none of us knew what we were doing. In fact, when we opened with that original group of 5, there was only one person who had worked in a bookstore, and her role had been, you know, as a bookseller. So, yeah, we were figuring it out as we went along, and I think that's been advantageous.
Is there anything else that you are thinking about you might
Well,
want to mention?
No, because you've you know, usually what people want to hear about is starting the store,
Mm-hmm.
which we talked about.
Yep.
And then I always say, but the more interesting thing is starting it at the age of 60.
Yep.
Because I think that has been so inspiring to me
Mm-hmm.
to see that I, at this point in my life, can have a completely new career.
Yeah.
And I believe so strongly that it's the collection of all the experiences I've had up to this point
Mm-hmm.
that have fueled this store, have given me the wisdom
Mm-hmm.
and the life experience to, you know, to know how to put this together in a way that will appeal to myself, and then as a result to other customers. I mean, that's the key when you're starting a retail business. Just do what you would want.
Right.
What would you like to see in the way of a store, and the way you're treated, and what the atmosphere is? So.
The other big thing that I would say with Melissa and frankly everybody I interview these days, starting something after 50 or around there, there's an understanding of what failure means, and there's a lack of fear about it. I think that you don't want to mortgage your house maybe and risk that kind of failure, but as far as embarrassment or all the other things that we used to think about in our 20s and 30s and 40s, I mean,
we're so free of that now. Isn't that nice?
It's so nice.
Well, again, but it's life experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you the perspective, which I still practice now that we're operating the business, is that I will say, you know what, we're going to try this idea. If it doesn't work, then we have that data point, and I'm not going to feel bad if we waste a little money on it. We've now learned something.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I think, again, it's the wisdom of 6 decades has been to my advantage, and I think it has contributed a lot to the atmosphere in the store, and the success of the business, and the way we keep evolving. I guess the one last thing I would say is that with anyone starting a new business, you've got to be prepared to keep it fresh, because if anyone were to come in here 2 years ago and see it today, I think they would say, you know what, they're doing a really good job keeping it fresh, coming up with new products, coming up with new genres of books, displaying things in a fresh way. And quite frankly, like, we've changed the stairway carpet 3 times, and we've been open for 2 years because there's so much foot traffic.
Yeah.
But I just don't want it to get tired. I want it to always be as magical as it was for people stepping in the first time in October of 22 as it is 10 years from now.
It is definitely, I mean, you look around even the little room that we're in right now, which is a tiny little room. There's not a chip of paint. There's just...
She's being generous. There's a little bit. Can I just move the camera around just so people can see the room that we're sitting in? So this is our aesthetics room.
So this look at the ceiling.
The ceiling is kind of fun. It's done in Sister Parish wallpaper. And then there's this beautiful floor-to-ceiling window that looks out on Charles Street.
And Sister Parish was not a Catholic nun.
No,
that was what her siblings called her as a child,
which is which is a traditional name among certain circles for the girl in the family.
It is funny.
Anyhow,
I think that just about. I know I had one more question, but shockingly, it just went out of my head.
Okay,
well, Melissa Fetter, thank you so much.
It was a pleasure. It's fun, and I would say to anyone out there thinking about starting a business, go for it.
Thank you.